This is pretty much going to be the shortest video I've ever done for AltDevBlog. My parents came to visit me here in Japan, and that took about 2 weeks. So as a result, I didn't have time to come up with the high quality explanatory animations that I'm so well known for. And yes, that was completely sarcasm. So let's get started. So here's the problem. This is something that I used a variation in the shooter lighting system, but we were processing 16 pixels at a time. You can actually do that, but I'm going to show you the 4 pixel version just because it's well, easier to explain. So you've got a map in SPU local store which tells you which pixels are occluders and which ones aren't. And we've got a ray, some ray of light, and we'd like to know the length of that ray before it hits the first occluder. Now we can't just basically look for the last one because there could be ones in the middle of it, so it would be nice if we wouldn't have to go through each individual pixel, if we could just do a bunch of pixels at once in a nice branch-free way. So let's try that out. So the data basically is 0 if it's not an occluder, and then some number if it is. Like I said, we're only doing 4 pixels at a time, so we have no occluder, 42, which might be some kind of rock or who knows what it is, and then no occluder. So if everything works out, the length of our light ray should be 2 pixels long. And I stuffed ones into the rest of the vector, and you'll see why that's very important. But obviously you don't need that if you're doing 16 at a time. So starting out, you're going to go through each byte and you're going to compare it to 0. If it's greater than 0, make it FF, otherwise make it 0. So as you can see, this kind of makes sense. I mean, 0, 0, FF is where our occluder is, and then another 0, and then all those 1s are also FF. Simple so far. Okay, this is one of my all-time favorite instructions, and I overuse this so much it's not even funny. So GBB is gather bits from bytes, and what we're going to do is we're going to go through each one of these bytes in the vector, all 16 of them, and we're going to get a 1 if it's a 1. We're going to look at the least significant bit and just take that and then stick it into the lower 16 bits of a word and pad the upper 16 bits with all zeros. So once again, because we have no occluder, no occluder, occluder, no occluder, we would expect 0010, and we have 0010, followed by all ones because all the rest is FF, with the upper 16 bits padded to 0. Now we would like to get rid of that, so we're going to shift left to basically get rid of those 16 values. We're going to do it by 16, which takes the important values, puts them up front. Now here's another instruction I totally overuse all the time. It's count leading zeros. So we're going to go through that thing that we just calculated in that word. We're going to count the leading zeros, which is 0010. So we start off with 2 zeros. We're going to write down a 2. Okay, so for this particular iteration of the loop, because there are many iterations, the length of it is 2, and then we hit an occluder. Okay, so that's the basis of how the length counting works. However, we're not quite done because, like I said, you have to do this in a loop. So we have to be able to know when to stop, know if we need to add this count to the previous count, just basically update some state, which is what these next 4 instructions do. Okay, so we're going to stuff into register 69 what's in register 73 and 45. That probably doesn't make sense to you, but here's what it is. In 73, that's the result of our CLZ, our count leading zeros. So that's essentially the length of this segment of the ray that we're looking at. And we're going to add it to what's in 45, which is on the previous iteration, the total count of the length at that time. Now I've written down as 8. I didn't show you what happened last iteration, so I'm just making up numbers at this point. Now we're going to start in a temporary register because we don't want to overwrite the real count or the previous count. So, okay. Now we're going to take 4 and compare it greater than to the count in this iteration. Now it may be a little hard to understand why we're doing this, but because we're processing 4 pixels at a time, if there are 0 occluders, you will have 0, 0, 0, 0, because we're looking 4 pixels at a time, and then if you get the count leading 0 of that, it will be 4. So if 4 equals 4, that means we had no occluders. If 4 is greater than the count, that means we did have an occluder. So this is going to become almost like, a mask telling you if you need to update or not. So this is the cell B, and we're basically going to look at what's in 40. Now 40 is the updated mask from the previous iteration. So 40 at this point tells us on the previous iteration, did we find an occluder, did we not find an occluder? So if we did find an occluder on the previous iteration, we're going to totally throw away the calculations we did now. Otherwise, we're going to replace the count with the old count plus our, the thing we found this time, so that's new count. So this basically, if you want to keep running even after you found an occluder because you want to make it all nice and branch free, this is one way to do that and to not, stomp over the count or keep updating after you found an occluder. And finally, the OR is just taking the previous mask and our current mask and ORing them together, so that it's just updating the mask so that if we found an occluder this time, updates that, and then while we keep running, we basically never update again. That's it. That's all there is. There are better ways to do it. My blog post was kind of old. Yeah, hopefully you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you guys later. Bye.